My next guest is Lainie Liberti. Is that correct?
Close, close.
So you're the founder of Project World School. Go ahead and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually the co-founder. I co-founded Project World School with my son, which is really a wonderful journey, I guess, if
Yeah.
you will. We created Project World School. My son was only, I think he was 13, more or less.
Oh, wow.
And we created this project because he wanted to, we were traveling, we were living nomadically, and he wanted community. And so that was sort of the beginning point for Project World School. The educational style was self-directed learning.
So in 2008, you and your son went on the road. You were living down in LA area. What were you doing before that?
I worked in branding, advertising, graphics, marketing, all that for about 18 years. In the last 8 of those years, I owned an agency. And when the economy crashed in 2008, I was faced with it's time to make a change. And at the time, my son was only 9 years old.
Cool.
And being a single parent and working all the time, it really became a lot. And so at that time, we made the decision together to go have an adventure.
Must have been pretty wild. So you, in 2008, up and sold pretty much everything and decided to hit the road. Like, what was going through your mind during that time? Like, was it just kind of just hit you and you're like, okay, I'm doing this thing. I'm out of here. I want to start from scratch and just explore the world. What was kind of your mindset there?
Well, the part that you said, did it just hit you? Yes, it just hit me. It was an inspiration. It was almost as if the thought moved through me,
Uh,
or the
yeah,
inspiration moved through me. I wasn't running from anything. I was just done.
yeah.
I was, you know,
So you're in LA. You basically sell everything and hit the road. How did you pick your first destination?
well, it was the most logical and geographical place. We wanted to just go south. Let's just take that road from, LA and just keep heading south. We decided that we were going to take a bus. I
Oh my
sold my
gosh.
car before I left. So we were going to just bus and travel slowly. The journey was to look like starting LA, heading to Mexico, and just going south and ending up at the tip of Argentina, Ushuaia. And we were going to do that in 1 year. It took about 8 months, and we were as far south as Guatemala. So we decided that the style of traveling was really, really slow, and we enjoyed that more.
Did you have any interesting things happen while you were on the road? And like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody if they're traveling south? I would imagine you ran into some situations where maybe it was a little hairy at times, or was it always smooth sailing for you?
Well, I mean, when you're traveling as a family, you're going to make smart choices
Yeah.
that are, more in alignment with safety.
Yeah.
As a single parent and being the only person, I had to be more aware of my surroundings. We just made smarter choices. I know that most people, especially in the United States, that haven't traveled south of the border almost immediately believe that anywhere south of the United States is dangerous.
Mhm.
The world is filled with people from different cultures and different backgrounds and different perspectives and different worldviews, but they're family people. They're people that have the same desires, wants, needs as you do. And as a parent traveling with a kid in the early days, we'd go to parks and my son's name's Miro, he'd meet kids speaking a totally different language and they'd find the common language of play. And I'd sit with the mothers and we'd watch our boys play and we'd giggle with no other language
Yeah.
skill between us, and there was a commonality, and I remember way before, understanding any Spanish, easy it was to connect with people just because the commonality of being a parent and
it's
That to
actually
me was really important.
it's actually amazing, like, how well you can communicate with people even though you may not speak the same language. Like, I was in the military overseas, and we would escort, host national people who spoke Arabic, and we didn't speak a lick it I didn't speak any Arabic, but you would sit around and have meals with these people and
Mhm.
make gestures and joke, and we were having a great time. So it's, you really can communicate with people even without that language.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you were heading south, and what kind of led you into like starting your company? So you guys have the Project World School. You have given an education to your son on the road, which is amazing, and obviously he's learned a lot and loves it, right?
Yeah, very much so. When we left the States, my son was just turning 10 at that point, and intuitively, I knew that 1 year of travel would be way more educational than going to school. I pulled him out of school for this trip. Again, we thought that we'd travel, then head back to the States and pick up our lives where we left off. And when we decided that we were going to continue what we were doing, I had to seriously look at education and look at the state of education in the United States and what my son had just left. And we really came to the conclusion that the education system and the school that he was in really wasn't working for him. It wasn't supporting him. He was made to support the other kids when he finished his work first. He started to resent the whole educational process. I found it a little bit of along the lines of indoctrination, and I didn't find it supporting his creativity. And when we started together to look at what we wanted as a team, as in a partnership, we changed the word education to the word learning.
Okay.
And then we were able to define all the things that we thought were important. And a lot of that we learned through the travel and the immersion, and we were already doing it. And when we discovered that there was an actual type of education written about, talked about, practiced for, 50 years in this form and for thousands of years of human existence called self-directed education and
Yeah.
parent-supported education. I, I was like, oh my God, we're doing that. It's working. We're actually enjoying the learning process and it's immersive learning. And it was just incredible way to approach the education of my child.
Yeah.
They're 26 or almost
Oh
26.
wow.
No, it's been a while,
Yeah.
but it was all about stepping back into, for me as the parent, the role of the learner so I can learn side by side because I had never been to Nicaragua or Guatemala or Costa Rica or any of the countries in Africa or Europe or Asia that we had visited. And I always had questions, and we asked questions, and we wanted to know about the culture. And we discovered through these explorations that each one of us had individual, focuses that lit us up as learners. I mean, I really like pre Columbian history and archaeology. My
Right.
son really got into global politics and
Oh.
world history and myth. And that brought us to Greece and to
Oh.
Japan and all of these amazing places that he had studied and read about and wanted to know more and walk in the footsteps of the giants and the gods and all of these things. And it was just, it was like, until he turned 18, 8 full years. I mean, even though we continued to travel up until 2020 when he was 21. But think about that immersive learning where the world was our classroom,
Yeah.
and that just became deep, rich learning. We ended up spending 3 years in Peru in the Andes, and that was a place that just lit up our imagination with, the mysticism and the connection to Pachamama and plant medicine and
Right.
plants and the
That's my
stars.
jam.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean You could read about this stuff,
Yeah.
but until you like live and immerse yourself in those environments, you're not going to feel like you know this stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, you do kind of a online school and you do some coaching and everything, but for people who can't travel around the world, like, do you recommend homeschooling? Because I was homeschooled. My mom taught 5 kids. Oh, it was crazy, but it was amazing. But it's a different experience, and now it's a little more accepted than it used to be. If somebody can't necessarily travel around the world, which, would be amazing, and I would love to do that if my wife's listening. Yeah, uh,
You could do it.
yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of they sell everything and just go for it and, live life.
Most people believe that they can't do it because of, X, Y, Z. It's the idea that you're rooted. It's the idea that you have responsibilities. It's the idea that these things are more important than living your dreams. Also, a lot of people believe that they can't do it because of the money. And I can tell you for the first like 6 years, we lived off of 1,000 USD per month.
Wow.
So if you
Yeah.
can figure out how to save or budget or have an online, or some sort of remote work where you
Yeah.
can earn that, you can do it. We lived as visiting locals. We did not this was not like tourism in the sense where it was luxury or even
Yeah.
comfortable at
Yeah.
times. But that became the biggest sort of non-academic learning that we did. We learned what was important to us, what our values were. We had these experiences together. We had the conversations together about what was really important. And we got to see how other people in the world lived without putting them in a fishbowl, but by immersing ourselves and learning about the things that they value and the things that light them up and how to contribute and be a part of a culture that was not our own. So those objections that most people hear or say to themselves can be overcome if you want to. And what I discovered, which brought me into the work that I'm doing now, what was most important in our exploration of the outer worlds really was the state of our inner worlds.
Mhm.
And that brought me into mental health work and self directed, using tools. And then as the years progressed, working more and more with teens, teaching teens how to advocate for themselves and to tap into their own inner worlds.
What do you think the biggest challenges for teenagers, boys and girls, I guess, these days, besides social media? I know social media is huge and it's
Yeah.
creating a mental health crisis for a lot of teens, but what else?
So I don't know how to say this without offending a lot of people.
Ah, let's offend them. Who cares?
Uh, um, there is a mental health crisis. And I think that, I was talking earlier about the awareness of knowing more about mental health and psychology and neurobiology and all of those things versus when I was growing up and how my parents parented, which I would not recommend for anybody. Hopefully, we can parent better. But because we've expanded our awareness of psychology and all of the potential diversities, right? And we are in an age of quantifying and classifying everybody's neurodiversity.
Mhm.
And the teens that I've been working with post 2020 are so aware of their their diagnoses and their friends' diagnoses that through social media, some of these diagnoses are worn as a badge of honor, and I've worked with teens that talk about their friends in school who argue about who has more problems. And it becomes the identification with something that is not positive. It's a negative identification. And as teens are growing up, or as children are growing up and moving through the adolescence and moving through these years, it is a biological stage for trying on identities. And if everybody else in the world is talking about, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, I'm on the spectrum, this, it becomes almost like an identification versus an awareness of how to empower oneself, right?
Mhm.
So from I would say from 2020 and beyond, the teens that I've worked with, I've noticed have changed. They have identified with their depression more. They've identified with whatever they believe that they are struggling with as the sort of,
Like
description.
it's like a
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy. I've kind of noticed that so many people online say, oh, I have this or I have that, and some people do have serious, real mental health challenges, but others, like you said, it is kind of a badge of honor, and they're looking for an identity. And I don't know if that's because of a lack of parenting, being involved in the child's life and being a part of them and helping them have their own identity that isn't a mental health.
I would say, it probably would be the most obvious thing to say. Of course, let's blame it on the parents, but
Yeah.
it's a cultural
Yeah.
phenomenon. We're talking about a cultural meme where people are looking toward using social media and using the language of their peers to give meaning to their own experience.
Mhm.
So there have been a lot of self-diagnoses. And I even worked with a teen who he, he went to public school, and one of his friends was in their group were talking about, I've been diagnosed with this and that, and I self-harm. And right after that, two of his other friends started to self-harm because it was presented to them as like the thing to do,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's the old saying, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you follow him? And, that's what my parents always said to us. But,
with a
yeah,
bungee cord.
yeah, no, I'm good. No, thank you. Have you done that?
I have not, but I've
No.
watched people in Ecuador. I was
Oh,
like, "Do I really wanna do this?" No, but I did go parasailing in Peru.
I did paragliding for about a year, and it was,
Paragliding.
yeah, it was,
Where
I'm
where did you
terrified. What's that?
where did you paraglide?
In Southern Oregon, where I live, we have a hill out here that's called Wood Rat, and it's a pretty notorious paragliding hill. A lot of people would go down to Ecuador during the winter time and do paragliding down there. And but I'm afraid of heights, and so it wasn't for me. But I did it for almost a year. It
Oh,
was,
that's amazing.
yeah.
I did it once, and I was strapped on to
Oh, to
somebody
somebody
else.
else? Yeah,
Yeah, and
I never did that. I never went with anybody else. I just started off going, down these little hills and eventually jumped off big mountains. But, I was always like frozen solid. It was not good. So, what kind
response.
of adventures? What'd you guys do? Did you surf? What were you doing down?
Yeah,
Everything?
we surfed, we've climbed volcanoes. I think both my son and I tend to like the mountains a little bit more than the beaches. He really got into rock climbing. The first time he learned how to rock climb was in Thailand, and he's been all over the world rock climbing. He loves it. And the city that we live in here in Mexico has a rock climbing mountain.
Nice.
Can you see
It's
it?
awesome. Good exercise. Go walk
Yeah.
35 minutes and then climb a mountain. So you guys did a TED Talk together, which I watched. And how did you get signed up with that? That's a
It
pretty
was
exciting deal.
No, we were just asked to do it, and The woman who was organizing the TEDx in Amsterdam was a like academic education academic.
Yeah.
She asked me to do it, and I didn't want to go by myself.
Yeah.
And my son is such a great speaker. I was terrible. He was like, Mr. Poise. When I have to speak from, like a memorized script, I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't for this. I'll never be an actor for that
Yeah.
reason. But we had to have our cues so he knew what to say, and then I knew what to say. And right before, so I had my cards with me. They didn't want me to bring cards, and I did everything to memorize. I wrote the dang speech. Yeah, I wrote it.
Yeah.
I wrote the dang thing. I recorded my voice doing it. I slept with it. Tried to memorize, but I could never remember the exact words. It's just not my
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah. But
And right before we went on, they told us that they cut 4 minutes, so we had to shorten it, and we're
oh,
like,
jeez.
"What the heck?"
What are you gonna cut out?
Yeah, so we just sort of cut out 1 or 2 stories, and that was it, but I think, this my son was 16 or 17 at the time. Like I said, that was my gosh, it's going on 10 years that we did this, and speaking at there were 3, 4, 500 people in this room. I don't even know. We're all academics, and we were talking about learning outside of academia. So we were like the wild card. It was
The black
really
sheep.
nerve-wracking. It was fun. It was fun. You
That's
know?
awesome. That's an amazing experience. Like, not a lot of people get that opportunity, and I love TED Talks, so when I saw that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, they got" like, that's really cool. So, like, your son, what's he doing? Like, does he love this
He's
life?
sitting right over the
"What's up, buddy?" He can come
oh,
say
he's got
hi.
headphones on.
Oh, okay.
Well, like I said, we opened up a cafe together 5 months ago here in central Mexico. It's a board game cafe, and it's right in the center part of this historic city. We've got a staff. We worked on the menu. We worked on the business plan together. We worked on all of this stuff. I still do coaching. I work with teenagers and I teach courses for mental health, teaching them mental health, and I create community for the teens. And I do that through my company called Transformative Mentoring for Teens. And my book, it was a bestseller. It's
Congratulations.
still, thank you. It still hits the top, 10 to 20 in adolescent psychiatry on Amazon. And it's still doing well. It sells quite a bit.
That's
And it's a
amazing.
book filled with tools for parents and teens to really help manage mental health. And it's the thing that I love about using tools for mental health is it's not a person saying, do this. It's like this objective outside of yourself tool that you can fill out. You can go deep. You can have conversations. You can do a lot of self inquiry. And those tools are neutral. It's not like somebody's telling you to do it, it's not like your parent is. It's a way for you to empower yourself to go in and know your inner worlds greater. So,
So, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and wanted to be coached by you, what would be the best way to find you?
well, usually it's the parents of my clients because I don't work with adults. I
Yeah.
work with teenagers.
Yeah.
They can find me at Transformative Mentoring for Teens. Also, my son and I also facilitate world schooling trips. And like I said, we've been doing it for 13 years. So we take teens to different places in the world and we have these immersive learning experiences. And we've taken over 200 teens to
Oh,
different
wow.
places. So, yeah, we do that too in between running our cafe.
You're a
We're
busy
busy.
person.
Son works with tweens through the micro school online for learners who are either home educated or want to supplement their education. So he's like a teacher.
All
So,
right. So if you, any parents out there who are thinking about, man, pull the plug and just take my kids and start traveling the world, what's your advice?
Oh, I think you should do it. I think check out books. I would join Facebook groups, which I happen to have one.
Okay.
It's called We Are World Schoolers, and it's a wonderful community that we launched. We've been facilitating world schooling community and helping families for years, probably close to 15 years, 14
Nice.
or so. Get people around you that have done it. Listen to world schooling, family travel podcasts, and look at the fear that's stopping you. Find other people, talk to other people that have done it. Like I said, I raised my son on the road, and that's an incredible way to be.
That's
You're just
amazing.
lucky that he just happens to be here tonight at my house,
That's aw
waiting for me. But he's a self-independent person, and he's got a great life.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. You have an incredible life, and congratulations on all your success, and I really do appreciate you taking time to share your experience with me.
I thank you. I'm really grateful. And I love that you're doing a podcast on teaching and learning because we're all in that role in different parts of our lives and we can learn from every human being on this planet. And I'm sure you teach and learn too.
Absolutely. Well, I'm doing my best. I have a lot of life experience, but a lot of times I just like to listen to other people's. And so every once in a while, I'll throw something out there. But one of these days, I'll do a big podcast about me and maybe somebody will listen. So,
Fantastic. Well,
right on.
enjoy.
Thank you. I
Enjoy.
appreciate you so much.
Thank you.